They never dropped diss tracks, never stood on the same stage throwing bars at each other. But behind closed doors, in interviews, and in subtle moves, Jay-Z and 50 Cent were always playing chess. One moved in silence, the other made headlines. And for over 2 decades, they danced around each other, each knowing exactly where the other stood. This is the quietest, pettiest, richest beef in hip-hop, and it never really ended. Before 50 Cent was a household name, Jay-Z was already a living legend. In the late 90s, he was carving out a throne with Valorant 2 Inches and Hard Knock Life. He wasn't just spitting bars, he was building an empire with Rockefeller. Everyone in the game looked up to him or tried to stand beside him. But Jay wasn't interested in sharing the top spot. He kept his circle tight and his moves tighter. And when 50 started rising in the underground, Jay noticed, but didn't flinch. He had seen Hungry Wolves before. A young 50 Cent drops How to Rob, a track roasting nearly every rapper alive. It was meant to be funny, bold, disrespectful, and it worked. He mocked everyone from Big Pun to Diddy. But it was Jay-Z's reaction that made headlines. At Summer Jam, Jay fired back, "I'm about $1. What the fuck is 50 Cent?" That line echoed through every barbershop in New York. And for 50, that was validation. He was no longer invisible. Jay-Z had just acknowledged him, even if only with one line. The war had officially begun. Jay-Z wasn't interested in a rap beef with someone still on the come-up. He dealt with Nas, DMX, and real lyrical threats. So instead of wasting bars, he focused on ownership. He dropped The Dynasty, expanded Rockaware, and bought into the Nets. Every time someone threw a shot, he built another building. He was mastering the art of business over bars. Still, he was watching 50. He saw the momentum growing, but he wasn't going to help feed it with more free promotion. In Jay's world, silence was the ultimate response. 50 Cent didn't slow down. He went full throttle. Get Rich or Die Trying dropped in 2003 and shattered everything. Street anthems, chart domination, a cosign from Eminem and Dre. He had become what Jay-Z had once feared, an unstoppable force with nothing to lose. But even with all his wins, he couldn't stop mentioning Jay. In interviews, on mixtapes, through sneaky lines, he kept baiting the mogul, trying to pull him down into a headline war. But Jay never bit. And for 50, that silence became even louder. Jay-Z had mastered the industry. While 50 was beefing with Ja Rule, Fat Joe, and everyone else, Jay was stacking wins quietly. He took over as president of Def Jam, signed Rihanna, built Roc Nation. He didn't need to diss to dominate. His wealth did the talking. But behind the scenes, insiders say Jay never liked how 50 moved. Too loud, too wild, but he respected the hustle. And he knew, keeping your name out of drama kept your brand clean. 50 Cent didn't do subliminals. He did interviews. Whenever a mic was in front of him, he found a way to mention Jay-Z. Sometimes he praised him. Other times he called him boring, not for the streets, or too polished. But the strategy was clear. Stay in the conversation. Keep Jay's name next to his. It wasn't always beef. It was business. And 50 had learned something from Jay after all. Control the narrative, even if it's with controversy. Jay-Z had his own way of responding. He made you irrelevant without even mentioning your name. While 50 was building his G-Unit empire, Jay launched Roc Nation Sports, signed J. Cole, and bought into Tidal. He kept outgrowing the music industry entirely. He became a cultural figure, not just a rapper, and the higher he rose, the quieter he got. There were no sneak disses, no bar-for-bar drama, just legacy stacking. And for those watching closely, that silence, it was shade. When 50 sold Vitamin Water for over $100 million, he finally had something to flex beyond mixtape sales. That deal put him in Jay's tax bracket, and he made sure everyone knew it. Jay's not the only one with business moves, he'd say in interviews. But the truth? 50's rise wasn't about keeping up. It was about being seen. And even when he made millions, he kept bringing Jay's name up. Because in his mind, there could only be one king in New York. Jay-Z would rarely mention 50 by name, but he'd drop little lines that felt way too personal to ignore. Lines like, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman," or verses about people trying to follow his blueprint. He never said the name, but everyone felt it, even 50. Jay was sending subtle missiles while smiling in a suit. No shouting, no chaos, just calm, surgical dominance. He had made subliminals an art form. And 50? He caught everyone. Even into the 2000s, 50 Cent never stopped bringing Jay up. Whether it was about money, music, or just taking little jabs, he found a way to keep the Cold War alive. "Jay's not relevant to the streets anymore," he once said. But fans started asking, if he's not relevant, why talk about him? Because 50 knew one thing: mentioning Jay keeps you in the conversation. It wasn't just beef anymore. It was branding. By 2013, Jay-Z wasn't just a rapper. He was rap's version of Warren Buffett. He dropped Magna Carta Holy Grail, partnered with Samsung, and sold out stadiums on his own. He wasn't worried about charts anymore. He was chasing cultural moments. His image was polished, powerful, and quiet. No beef, no mess. Yet fans noticed Jay's journey was always solo, never linked up with 50, never appeared on the same stage. That silence, still intentional. Jay wasn't going to share his lane. He paved it, and he protected it. 50 Cent noticed the moves too. He saw the business plays, the curated image, the billionaire branding, and he respected it in his own 50 Cent way. But he also mocked it. He'd post memes clowning Jay's lyrics. He'd call him Grammy rap, soft, out of touch. It wasn't envy, it was irritation. 50 couldn't understand why someone from Marcy didn't move with more aggression. He wanted Jay to battle, but Jay just moved further away. And that silence, it ate at him. Jay-Z crossed a line very few artists ever reach. He became a symbol. No longer just part of the culture, he was the culture. From meetings with presidents to halftime shows, he took hip-hop places no one had imagined. And with Beyonce beside him, he was bulletproof in a way 50 never could be. He didn't need to respond. His resume was the response. But that didn't mean he forgot. Jay keeps mental receipts, and he never forgets who tried to play him coming up. 50 found his own lane, and it wasn't in the booth anymore. It was power. The Stars show exploded, flipping 50 into a media mogul. Suddenly, he wasn't just a rapper either. He was writing, producing, building a TV empire. And you better believe he mentioned it every chance he got. Where's Hov's TV shows? Where's his street content? 50 wasn't just competing in music anymore. He wanted to beat Jay at everything. And for once, he had a platform big enough to try. Jay-Z hit billionaire status. No celebration, no victory lap. Just a Forbes cover and a quiet nod. He didn't even say 50's name, because he didn't have to. That title came with weight. It meant he had climbed the rap game and left it. While others were still fighting for relevance, Jay had redefined it. And even if 50 was making major moves, Hov was already sitting on the final boss level. Game over. Quietly. But 50 Cent doesn't let billionaires off the hook. He laughed at Jay's title rollout, called his bars dad rap, said the only reason people still mention Jay is because of Beyonce. Was it jealousy? Maybe. But it was also strategic. Every diss brought a headline, and every headline brought views. If Jay wouldn't come down to 50's level, 50 would climb just high enough to pull at his ankles. Jay's deal with the NFL in 2019 changed everything. He was now picking Super Bowl performers and advising the league. To some, it was a sellout. To others, it was power redefined. And while the culture debated it, 50 Cent stayed watching. He didn't speak much on the move because it wasn't music, it was checkmate. Jay had become too big to touch, and even 50 knew this wasn't beef anymore, it was a gap. 50's subtweets about Jay-Z started getting more sarcastic than serious. Instead of direct shots, he'd clown his art gallery lyrics, his long verse intros, or his business-first attitude. No one knew if it was real hate anymore, or just part of the 50 Cent brand. But fans saw through it. They knew 50 respected Jay. He just hated losing to him. Because no matter how many shows he produced or jokes he cracked, Hov always had the final flex. He never had to reply. Jay-Z turned his focus to legacy. He inducted others into the Hall of Fame. He gave quiet shout-outs to Nipsey Hussle, built generational wealth for his kids, and bought back entire music catalogs. He wasn't trying to trend. He was trying to outlive the culture itself. 50 was still playing for attention. Jay was playing for history. And while the world kept asking if they'd ever go bar for bar, Jay was too far ahead. He wasn't making albums. He was writing textbooks. But 50 still had one weapon: humor. In a world full of seriousness, his petty, wild, often brutal jokes kept him viral. Jay wouldn't respond, but the world would laugh, and that was enough. Because in the end, 50 didn't need Jay's approval. He needed the world to keep watching. And every Jay-Z meme, every post, every troll, It bought him more time in the spotlight. In his own way, 50 turned their quiet feud into his loudest business model. Jay-Z never addressed 50 directly in interviews. Not once. Not even a subtle jab. Because to him, acknowledgement was power. And power isn't shared. It's protected. He didn't deny the rivalry. He didn't feed it. He just outlasted it. When asked about other rappers, he'd shift the topic to art, ownership, family. He was walking through marble halls while the rest were still chasing clicks. That wasn't shade. That was strategy. The loudest guy in the room is rarely the richest. 50 knew how to keep his name in rooms where Jay stayed silent. He'd troll the Rock Nation brunch, calling it a millionaire prom. He'd throw shade at Jay's vegan lifestyle, his stay woke energy. But there was always a smirk. 50 wasn't angry. He was playing his character. He had turned the art of pettiness into an empire. And deep down, he knew. Even when Jay doesn't answer, he hears everything. That was the fun of it. You can't start a war with someone who refuses to fire back. But that never stopped 50 from marching. Jay's power was in what he didn't say. While 50 played the internet, Jay played the institutions. Rock Nation expanded into sports, law, and criminal justice reform. He wasn't trending, he was transforming. And he still never mentioned 50. Because silence in Jay's world wasn't weakness, it was dominance. Real kings don't respond. They simply live in castles you'll never step inside. 50 once said in an interview, "Jay doesn't like me." Then he laughed. It wasn't bitter, it was amused. Like he knew the game for what it was. Jay was the businessman, 50 was the disruptor. Two kings, opposite strategies. But 50 still played chess, just with memes and punchlines instead of silence. He made sure his voice echoed every time Jay's name trended. And even if Jay ignored it, the fans didn't. They watched both, and that was enough for 50 to win his own way. Jay-Z's final chapters weren't written in clubs or concerts. They were written in boardrooms, courtrooms, and homes. He focused on his kids, invested in art, built a brand Beyoncé could trust her legacy with. There was no more hunger to prove himself. He had already done it, 20 times over. Even his rare verses sounded like lectures. He wasn't here to battle anymore. He was here to teach, and to build something 50 could never troll, a dynasty. Meanwhile, 50 Cent wasn't slowing down. He went global, expanding power into spin-offs, touring in Europe, launching liquor brands. He'd diss Jay one week, then be on red carpets the next. That was 50's power, chaos with a business plan. He weaponized unpredictability. While Jay built quietly, 50 marketed noise, and it worked. He didn't need approval. He needed attention. And he mastered getting it every time. You can ignore 50 Cent, but you'll still hear him in every room. Jay-Z's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech sealed it. He thanked those who doubted him. He didn't name names, but the message was clear. Even the petty moments served the bigger picture. He told his story without shouting. No disses, no bitterness, just clarity. Jay wasn't just successful, he was historical. And in that speech, silence wasn't just strategic, it was sacred. Because when you're etched in stone, there's no need to clap back. 50 Cent responded to Jay's Hall of Fame moment the only way he knew how, with a meme. No hate, just humor. A photo of him looking unimpressed with the caption, "Call me when they add TV bosses." It was vintage 50, playful, sharp, always just enough to stir the pot. Because even if Jay had the awards, 50 had the algorithm. He knew where the culture scrolled, and he never let them scroll too far without seeing him. Jay-Z has likely written entire verses we'll never hear. Lines about old feuds, silent victories, but he doesn't need to drop them, because legacy doesn't need noise, it needs time. And time has always been on Jay's side. He didn't win the beef, he outlasted it. 50 may have been the louder one, but Jay's silence roared in places 50 never reached. No bars, no tweets, just power moves. In the end, this was never about hate. It was about two men chasing power in different languages. Jay-Z chose silence, equity, and legacy. 50 Cent chose fire, entertainment, and evolution. They never collaborated. They never truly clashed. But they defined an era. From the shadows of New York to the peaks of global influence. Two kings, two castles, built with different bricks, but both still standing, still watching, and still refusing to bow.